Hello everyone, this is Mary Gregory with MAS Coding. Uh, Seems like it's been a long time since we've been together. I know we did a video last month, but it just, time just have gone fast, but it still seemed to be long. But at any rate, I am very happy to be with you all today. Today we are going to be talking about what I'm calling my CCS prep nugget. And we're going to be talking about one nugget. And this one nugget is concerning PCS coding. Now, that stands for Procedural Coding System. The PCS coding book is used in the facility by inpatient coders. If you are planning on taking the CCS, you must be familiar with your PCS book. You need to be familiar with the PCS root operations. Now, I won't be able to go into this in great detail today about all of the PCS, so we are concentrating today on one particular piece. And of course, as we move forward, if you want to take a deeper dive, we have some courses out there that you are more than welcome to avail yourself to. So today we're talking about biopsies, okay? And a lot of times we get biopsies confused with excisional tissue or aspirational tissue. So let's talk about biopsy. The first thing we want to do is define a biopsy. What is a biopsy? A biopsy is the taking of tissue from a living person. So biopsies are always on living people, not on cadavers, which means dead people. But they are on living people. Why would they do a biopsy? Well, they do a biopsy to study what happened to that person, what type of tissue. They can study that tissue, like in cancer, and determine how aggressive that cancer may be, what type of treatment would it respond better to. So you need a biopsy. Sometimes a biopsy is done before a more therapeutic procedure to determine, do we need to do a more therapeutic procedure? So they'll take a small piece of that tissue, send it to pathology, and study it. Now, as you grow in your coding, sometimes you'll hear the term of frozen pathology. They'll send a small piece of tissue to pathology while the patient is still in the OR, and the pathology can say yes or nay, it's cancer or not cancer, or whatever the case may be, so the physician or the surgeon can make a good decision. Now, always remember this. When somebody have an excision done, when they have a therapeutic procedure done, let's say they got a sigmoid colon cancer, and the physician knows it's cancer. So they go in and they cut out a piece of they remove that part of the sigmoid colon that has the cancer. They are going to send it to pathology, but that's not a biopsy. That is considered to be an excision, or in PCS root operation, it could be a resection. But biopsies are always considered to be an excision in PCS. If the entire body part is removed, then it's a resection. And they are going to send that to pathology. Therefore, anytime you have a therapeutic procedure performed and they send that tissue to pathology, that is an excision. That is not a biopsy. Now, we won't be able to get into all the different things in PCS coding. Like I said, we'll have something more specific. Now, this is what you need to understand. In the real world, we call it physician speak. Physician documentation. Physicians speak through their documentation. And so you have to understand there's many different ways to do a biopsy. Because now I'm not going to talk about excision or resection. I'm talking about a biopsy. A true biopsy where they're removing a part of that tissue to study it. Okay? Nothing therapeutic. They taking the tissue out to study that tissue. Now, in physician speak, they're going to tell you how that biopsy was performed. There are mainly two ways that biopsies are performed. One of them is what we call a closed biopsy. Now, closed biopsy can also be identified as a, quote, percutaneous biopsy. Anytime they go through the skin to get that tissue, it is percutaneous. How are percutaneous biopsies performed? Generally through some type of needle. So the percutaneous biopsy may be obtained through what we call a fine needle or core needle, C-O-R-E, core needle. There are times when a patient may have a biopsy in interventional radiology. Now, so in interventional radiology, they may use a catheter of some sort to get the biopsy. But see, that's still a closed biopsy. So a percutaneous biopsy or a closed biopsy, they can use imaging guidance. And so depending on where you work at, you may have two codes, you may have one code. A lot of times in the facility, the imaging part is on what we call a charge master. You, the coder, would actually code the PCS code. So you can have a closed biopsy, percutaneous biopsy via CT imaging, ultrasound, or MRI. But the key is that the biopsy will be defined for you as closed, percutaneous. They're going to tell you the instrument that was used. Was it a needle, core needle, or fine needle? In physician speak, they tend to document what we call in the old days by default. Meaning this, if you have a closed biopsy, most of the time it's going to be core needle. If it is a fine needle, they will actually document fine. But not a lot of physicians always document core needle because they figure you should understand that's what it is. So in the next type of biopsy, so we talked about the closed needle biopsy or closed. So anytime a needle is used to take that biopsy, it generally is considered to be a closed biopsy. The next one is what we call an open biopsy. And that is pretty self-explanatory. Sometime in physician speak, they'll say incisional biopsy. Well, that means they make an incision to get the tissue out. Sometimes they'll actually say excisional biopsy. And once again, when they make an incision into the skin, they're going to make an incision into the skin, and they're going to excise that tissue. So how physicians document it, maybe one physician may call it an incisional biopsy, another physician would call it an open biopsy or excisional. We as coders have to understand that terminology and know to select the appropriate code. Now, there are a few nuances to this, as always in coding. There are always going to be some nuances. What can I say? So one of the things that you have to understand is this. If you code a lot in CPT, CPT rules can differ from PCS rules. They are not married. They're not boyfriend, girlfriend. Sometimes they don't even live in the same neighborhood. So PCS rule can vary from CPT guidelines. And as a coder, you got to know that distinction that is that's there. So I talked about that. We talked about making sure we understand the definition of a biopsy. So let's do our takeaways today. We got to know the definition of a biopsy is defined as taking tissue from a living body, a living person, in order to microscopically or pathologically examine that tissue. Number two takeaway, we know that biopsy can be open biopsies or closed biopsy. Number three, we have to remember that physicians may not use the terminology of a closed. So if they use the terminology that is percutaneous, or they use the terminology that a core needle was done, or that an aspiration biopsy was done, you, the coder, must understand that. and select the correct code. In PCS coding, we have some very specific approaches. And a lot of times now in PCS coding, the approach will help identify the type of procedure that was performed, whether it was open, whether it was closed. So I wanted you to keep that in mind. That will be our CCS coding nuggets for today. When you take your CCS, it's no guarantee what type of procedure you're going to get to code. So you're going to have to know these things. You need to start studying the PCS root operations. Okay, there's 32 root operations. They're grouped into 9 specific type of what they do. Like I think the one that take out a body part without replacing it. You have excision in there, you have resection in there, you have detachment in there. So those the 32 root operation has been put into groups of 9 that identify very specific types of operations that can be performed on the body. And like I said, if you want to learn more about that, we'll have some additional classes on that. We look forward to talking to you in the future. So I am going to sign off for today. However, before I do, I have to give my little spiel here. I want you all to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and continue to send us your questions. I love getting your questions. Sometimes I do a Q&A on the question. I just got to tell you a funny story. Well, it was funny to me. I was out on our channel, and someone had wrote the comment. If you don't know, I got a new computer. So I loved my old computer, and I had a lot of information on that computer. So anyway, somebody sent me this comment and says, "Oh, do you see that old war horse computer she has?" And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, people are that petty to worry about somebody's computer. But I know I'm talking to a younger generation. I think y'all like to change computer maybe every 2 to 3 years. Honey, when you get into coding and you get all that stuff on your computer, you are not going to want to be changing computers every 2 to 3 years. It's too much information in there. And you got to transfer it and do all those different things. And sometimes you just have a computer you can fall in love with. So I love that old computer. In fact, I'm going to bring it back. So I just thought that was so funny that somebody was actually more concerned about the computer I used than the information and the content. So anyway, this is Mary Gregory. I want to sign off for today. Be sure and visit our website. We're doing a lot of improvement to our website. And as always, remember, coders get paid to think.